and welcome to Knitting the Notes with Dr. B. In this very rough and tumble video, I am going to attempt to assist a young relative who is memorizing Burgmüller's Rondo alla turca for a festival that they're playing in. First of all, I think it's a very good idea with a piece like this to know the scales. So the outer sections are in A minor and the middle section is in A major. So you'd want to practice your A minor scale, and it's probably most of the time your A harmonic minor scale. I'll just play it 2 octaves, but you can do it however you want to do it. And then the middle section in A major. There's a little section in the middle section, a little part in the middle section that goes into the relative minor of A major, which is F sharp minor. If you want to do overkill. Okay, so what I've got going on here is my newer iPad filming my old decrepit iPad hooked up to a power bank so it can keep going because I have the music in 4-score. Now, when you're playing by memory, it is true that the only kind of memory that's going to come fast enough for you during a performance is your finger memory. However, after puberty, finger memory is not so reliable. And most of the time, children up until the age of puberty have not got very much, it's easier for them to memorize. Of course, the pieces get harder as you get more advanced, and your brain becomes more like an adult brain. So you have to, if you want to have a solid experience in performance, you want to work your practicing with different types of memory, like analytical memory, and I'm going to do a rough analysis of the piece, enough that you can use that to enforce your memory. And then your oral memory, your ear memory, and your tactile memory, and your visual memory, and that sort of thing. Finger memory is the thing that's going to go fast. But if you rely on that solely, you won't have a very solid experience. So the other thing, getting back to basics, with the scale, you might also want to practice the cadence, your 1 chord, your 4 chord, which is 4-6-4, your 4 chord in second inversion, and then your 5 chord in first inversion, and your 5-7 chord in first inversion. And for A major, there's any number of books you can refer to if you have never learned that sort of thing. So that will help. Once you have your analysis done, which I'll go over sort of last, the things that you can do when you have smaller sections identified, there are different things that you can do to always improve your memory. In my experience, if you have it memorized to a certain extent and you just stay with that level of memory for several weeks as you're getting ready for a performance, there's a risk of deterioration. But if you're always challenging your memory, even if you don't master the challenge, you'll be in a better position in performance. So in small sections, what I like to recommend is once you have your sections identified, however you want to identify them, to be able to play them by memory with your left hand alone. The harmonic function is usually in the left hand. And in this piece, there's not a lot of different harmonies, but there's a couple of unique ones, and I'll go over those later. Then be able to play it in a small section, hands together with your eyes closed. Be able to start and end each section, both in and out of order. once you have the sections identified, if you know how the piece goes and where you're at in the piece as you're playing it, if you get distracted by somebody, you'll be able to, regain your composure and keep going. And then anything that has an interesting harmony, which I will be pointing out to you, make a little extra effort to really have that solidly memorized. A lot of times those would be like what we call a secondary dominant, where you have the 5 of the 5 chord or something like that. So let me go through this. I've numbered my measures. I have not measured my numbers. So the first 2 bars are an A minor triad with just an introduction. Then you have the A section. I've only practiced this for 1 day, so I won't be as good as the people who have been practicing it for a while. And I'll play it a little bit slow so I can talk at the same time. So your right hand is playing the little melody over the left hand. The left hand has an A minor triad. And then in measure 5, you have this chord against an E7, the notes of an E dominant chord. So you have your E, there's an A. It's an interesting way of handling it because it should be this with a G sharp on the bottom, but the composer keeps the A on the bottom. So basically it's an E dominant chord over an A pedal point. And then you go back to the A minor chord, and then you go to an E minor chord, and in measure 9, what you have there is an E minor chord, and then a B dominant chord, which is the 5 of E minor. And if you're going to get distracted, that would be a place for it to happen. So just to be aware that you've gone out of A minor for a minute. You got your A minor, then you go E minor, and this chord right here, the B, D sharp, A, with an F sharp in the right hand, that's a B dominant 7 chord. It doesn't belong in A minor because it is the dominant chord of E minor, which is, or E major really. Well, E major is the major dominant of A minor. E minor is the minor 5 chord. So for whatever that's worth. So here's the first, you've got a big alphabet letter A section, which is the first third of the piece. And within that, you have a baby letter A, showing you that this is the first phrase of the piece. So you have your introduction. Just kidding. And here's where you have one interesting measure. E minor, B7, E minor, and that was your small letter, lowercase letter A section. Then you have A prime because it's like A, but not exactly. A minor chords. The E major chord with an A pedal point. A minor. That's a B, D, F, which is a 2 chord. That's the 2 chord in A major. 5, 7, 1. So that's a pretty standard cadence. 2, 6, 5, 7, 1. So there's your A and your A prime. They come back later. Now here's the B section, little baby letter B, because this is still part of the capital letter A section. And here you have an E major chord, and an A chord in second inversion, A minor chord. That's your 1, 6, 4. So 5, 1, 6, 4, if you're into that sort of thing. This is an interesting chord because it sort of is something that could be analyzed a couple different ways, and I would leave it to some of the master's degree or doctorate in music theory to say precisely what it is. It could be a 2 chord. It could be a 6 chord. No, it couldn't be. Well, it could be F sharp, A, C, E. which is a something of the something of the something. That's an interesting chord, so you just might want to make note of the fact that it's E, F sharp, A, C, and it resolves to the E major chord. And then so that little baby B section is a contrast. You have A prime, B prime in measure 22, leading into 23. And then you have a little transition. And this next section starts with the baby A1, which would be the second phrase of the piece. And then you have a totally different section, which I call C, and that is doing a whole lot of A and E minor chords. A minor, A minor, A minor, A minor, A minor, E major, which is the 5. And then here is the E7, leading back to A minor. A minor, A minor, A minor, A minor. Now this is different. This is the 4 chord, which is a minor chord, D, F, A. And then you have B, D, F, which is the 2 chord, 2/6 chord. That's going to lead you to the 5-5-7-1 cadence. 2/6 or D minor in first inversion, E major. And so that's all very standard stuff. That's the big A section. It's got baby letter A as a phrase. The next phrase is baby A prime. The next phrase is baby B prime at measure 20, leading into 23. There's a transition at 26. Measure 30 is a repeat of the A prime or A1 section, and then you have a new section at measure 38, which is C, and then 46 is C1, and then it ends. Then you have the middle section, which is capital letter B, and that is in A major. And you have A major chord, then the 5 chord, 1, A major again, 5, the E major, 7. And that is what that phrase I call D, lowercase letter D. And the last measure of it, that measure 60 and measures 67, those two are slightly different, and that's what makes the next phrase D prime. And then D prime or D1 has octaves in the melody instead of single notes. Just kidding. And that measure, 65, 67, is about the one thing that's majorly different, just a different voicing, because measure 60 has that, and measure 67 has that, measure 67 has that. But still, it ends in E major. Then the next phrase I call E. And here you are in F sharp minor, which is the relative minor of E major. And so you might want to put a little special attention into memorizing this section, because this would be the section where when you got adrenaline going, you might have an existential crisis. That E sharp is part of the F sharp harmonic minor scale. Whatever it is. and then you have another transition. And one thing you might want to do is memorize your transitions and just be able to play them cold. You know, you could name them however you want. I put in mine transition 1, transition 2, but try to keep track of where you're at in the piece with these labels if you find that helpful. If you find all of this not helpful, ignore the whole thing. But again, in the big B section, you have a phrase called D, and then D1, and then E, which is completely different because it's in F sharp minor, the relative minor of A major, and then D1 comes back again, and then you have transition 2, which gets you back to A. And so it's a big ABA form. And this A is, the first phrase is A, just like the first phrase at the beginning of the piece, except for the wrong notes that I'll probably throw in here. Just kidding. Oh, we should be in A minor. And then you have A prime. And then you have the little B section again. B1. And a third transition, which may or may not be like the first one. I'll have to look. And then A prime comes back again. And that A, right before what I call C, is not in the beginning section. That's slightly different there. And then you have the C phrase, A minor, A minor, A minor, A minor. Your 5/7 chords again. And this is different right here before the transition. You've got these chords that are not anywhere else, I do not think. And then here your left hand has the melody. So if you have a little trouble getting a good balance between your right hand and your left hand here, a way to practice that would be to ghost play your right hand. I guarantee you do that twice and your body will be saying, oh, that's what you want me to do. And your right hand will suddenly and miraculously be able to be softer than your left hand. And then you have what you could call an ending section or a coda, and what could possibly throw you off if you're not consciously aware of it is that your left hand is different here. Although it's interesting, he throws in finger legato. He writes it in because he's got that half note on the 5th finger, and that stays down while the other notes are being played. If you have trouble with that, do a sideways motion like that. Then here you have a bunch of A minor harmonic minor scales starting, well, 2, not a bunch, on an F. Whoa. And then 5, 1, 5, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. So I've seen, when I'm judging, I've seen people get a little relaxed a little too soon before the end of a piece, and then they fluff it. So if you stay consciously aware of what it is you're doing here, that will not happen. And if it does happen, you think A minor scale, yeah, whatever. Where did it go? And I could see doing what I just did, which is getting confused about where you're supposed to play the chord. If that happens, don't play the chord. If, you know, if everything just goes kaflooey right at the end, don't worry about it. Just play the scale. And your fingers will probably find where they're at. And then it's E major, A minor, E major, A minor, A minor. So that's probably as confusing as I want to get for you, but I want to see now the transition. That's transition 1 goes like that, and I was wondering if transition 3 was, nope. None of the transitions are the same. So after you've got everything else nailed down for your memory, that you're trying to challenge yourself to always do something harder with your memory, I would think you might want to strive to memorize the transitions on their own. So I hope you find that helpful. And if anybody wants an annotated copy that I made of the score, just message me through YouTube. Good luck, everybody who is learning this. Bye.